يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها بنفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بتقواها إذ انبعث أشكاها فقال له رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها ودمدم عليهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل
اللهم
على
صل على
مولانا
محمد وعلى محمد.
Jazakallah Hasnain. Assalamu alaikum, Mu'mineen. On behalf of Allah Society of Australia, I'd like to welcome Moulana Shanawaz Mehdavi Saheb to this first seminar. Moulana Saheb is helping us out from Peterborough, England. As you all know, he's been to Melbourne a few times in the past and is very popular amongst the Mu'mineen of Melbourne. About this seminar is going to be divided into two parts, with the first session being Moulana's address and the second part of the seminar for question and answers. If you have any questions, you can either raise your hand in Zoom using the raise hand button to ask your questions, or just type in your questions in the chat window, and inshallah we will ask Moulana Sahib on your behalf. Now, without any further delay, let us start the program by welcoming Moulana Sahib for the address. Jazakallah. Over to you, Moulana Sahib.
Assalamu alaikum to everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. لعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد. First of all, I'd like to thank Al-Asr and its management for having invited me for this program. And based on what has been advised to me on how this program needs to be conducted, apparently we will have 30 odd minutes to have an initial address, and then we will leave the floor open for any questions or any queries. Having said that, I'm sure all of you are aware of the topic that we have to be discussing, which is basically on social media, communication on social media, and handling peer pressure. Both of these topics are pretty vast by themselves, and to deal with both of them in a 30-minute slot is, I feel, would not be appropriate in doing justice to either of the two topics. And so what I have planned out is that I will address one topic in my address, and which is the social media component, and the peer pressure component I will address as the questions keep coming in the question answer slot. So without much ado, I just want to give you a little brief in terms of social media. Look, I'm not over here to highlight whether social media is good, social media is bad, or whether it is beneficial or whether it is detrimental. Neither am I going to talk about social media in terms of the social and secular concept that you have, as you can speak. As a student, I'd like to focus more on the concept and the aspect of social media that deals with religion, relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what I will be working on. I will highlight 2 or 3 benefits of social media. At the same time, I will highlight some of the harms of social media with respect to religion, and what good is knowing goodness of the evils of in addition to showing where I'm messing in terms of with respect to religion. I will also try to present one. There would be numerous, but I'm picking out one solution that Islam has provided to navigate around the problems of social media. So one thing we need to realize and accept that social media has come to stay in this world of ours, the internet connected world. And in the last 10 years, the explosion that social media has seen, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp or Twitter or YouTube or whatever, they tend to be, they are all encompassing. So there is no way out of it. You have to deal with. And this is where we have to realize that how do we navigate through the social media? Because in addition to having benefits, it also has its harms. And this is exactly like what the Quran says with respect to khamr. In Surah Baqarah, Allah is narrating when people came to ask the Holy Prophet about two aspects and two concepts. One, al-khamr, which is alcohol, and second is maisir, which is gambling. The Quran says in Surah Baqarah 219 verse number, Quran says, and Allah is quoting these people when they come to the Holy Prophet and they ask the Holy Prophet, what is the ruling of khamr and what is the ruling of maisir, gambling? And Allah says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ, and they ask you about alcohol and they ask you about gambling. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. In alcohol and in gambling, there are ithmun kabir, there's a big sin. وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ, it also has the benefits. They also have benefits. They have evils attached to it, they have benefits attached to it. But then God gives a comprehensive ideology and a formula as to how to deal with all such aspects when they have the pros and cons attached to it. Then Allah says, these people, alcohol and gambling, have evils attached to it, have goodness attached to it. But with respect to these two, وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرْ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا, the evils of these two things are more than the benefits, and hence you need to refrain from them. And this is exactly the same thing when it comes to social media. Social media, they have manafi'u linnas, they have the manafi', they have the benefits for society and people, but at the same time, وَإِثْمُهُمَا, they have their evils as well as attached to it. And what we need to do is to make sure that we navigate across the evils and take the benefits, so that then we can have the benefits of social media, at the same time turn away from the evils of social media. And it doesn't mean that social media doesn't have their benefits. It has its benefits. So for example, look in this COVID infected world of today. I mean, that becomes, social media becomes, when you guys are doing so well in Australia, we are having a major problem in the United Kingdom. I mean, I was just going through certain statistics today morning, and let me just read them out to you. I was looking at the time period between the 4th of Feb and the 10th of February in Australia and the United Kingdom. And the statistics were really stark contrast. I mean, you couldn't have something more night and day. So when I was looking from 4th February to the 10th of February, the new cases in Australia in this period of 7 days was 43 with 0 deaths. Now compare, this is Australia. Now compare that to the United Kingdom. In the same period from 4th of February to the 10th of February, new cases were in excess of 113,000, where 113,000 where we have over here, where 43 that you've got over there. And again, between the same two periods, Australia had 0 deaths, COVID-related deaths, whereas the United Kingdom had 5,516 deaths. So there's something that you guys are doing right over there, and we need to emulate you. But in this COVID-infected and pandemic-filled world, social media becomes one of those very fundamental fulcrums or pivots or tools which keep our families together. We can't have physical interaction over here. But the social media provides a virtual means to interact with our family and friends. Everybody understands this. At the same time, let's not make a mistake about the importance of technology and modern advancements in science and technology, specifically when it comes to Imam Zaman. And why do I say this? We've got this very basic or very unsubstantiated concept that when Imam Zamana will come, he will be only fighting with the Zulfiqar in his hand, with the horse and those sort of things. I mean, we bring ourselves to the 1400 years ago society, and we feel that that's how Imam is going to be dealing. And then you have 10,000 questions from the youths and from the children that, oh, if Imam is going to use those antiquated means, how is he gonna fight and contest the superpowers with their intercontinental ballistic missiles and latest laser technology and drones and falan and falan. And this is all resulting out of a misconception of how Imam Zamana would come when it comes to knowledge. Riwayat tells us that when Imam Zamana comes, and I'm giving you one example, there are numerous examples that you can give. This riwayat is talking about the means of communication between Imam and his commanders at the time, or his representatives, or his governors across the world. And riwayat has categorically mentioned that one of the ways that and note the words of the riwayat. The riwayat says Imam, when he wants to communicate with his governors, with his commanders, with his representatives, he will open his arm and communicate with his representatives by means of the palm of his hand. Will communicate with them by means of the palm of his hand. Now you remember, we're talking about 1400 years ago, where people did not know smartphones, and they did not know remote controls, and they did not know satellite technology. So the only way to talk to them and make them understand is to tell them. He would communicate with them by means of the palm of his hand. But today you have a 2-year-old child in the house who knows how to operate a phone, who knows how to unlock the phone. Our kids know how to use technology more than us. Look at social media, where you can communicate with something as small as a smartphone in the palm of your hand. So we have to be careful that social media technology will play a very important role when Imam Zamana will come. And hence it becomes important that we need to know that these are benefits of social media, and they cannot be just said, oh, it's bad in total. However, it also has harms, as the Quran says, for alcohol. فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ, and in alcohol and gambling there are evils. Similarly, in social media also there are evils. And today I will just link up 2 or 3 things with regards to the evils of social media with respect to religion, because that's what we are over here to discuss, social media and peer pressure in terms of the religious context. One of the things that social media does as a harm, and we need to navigate and understand how we need to navigate, is because of the immense reach of social media, it has the tendency to brainwash individuals. Because of the flow of the information and the plethora of the information that the social media transmits on a minute by minute basis, it has the ability to brainwash individuals. And I'll give you 2 examples. Look at, again, we will give the example of the COVID-19. How many times have we not picked up our phone, looked at the WhatsApp and seen one method where it's been circulating throughout the world, especially within our community? This is how we can cure COVID-19. Pick up this ingredient, pick up that ingredient, put another ingredient, mix up with another ingredient, boil it for so many minutes, start drinking it. That's the end of COVID-19. I mean, if that was the solution and the cure for COVID-19, then we wouldn't have all these lockdown in the countries. We wouldn't have all these forced quarantine into when you want to enter into certain countries. You won't have 1 million people plus having died out of COVID-19. And the cures are so simple. But the amazing thing is that because it has the ability to brainwash, the social media, because of its ability to brainwash, we have people, I'm sure, and I know for certain, there are people from within our own families, relatives, who have taken it so seriously, and they're actually implementing it with the understanding that this is going to sort of and cure COVID-19. Another thing that's taking place within our community is the conspiracy theories regarding vaccines. I'm not here to promote a vaccine, nor am I here to negate a vaccine. But look at what the conspiracy theories about vaccines is. And there's so many people who might say that, oh, we don't want to take it because of this and because of that. As we got the fatwa of Ayatollah Sistani when he says, look, there may be harms of vaccines and there may be good points, but if the medical experts say that the good points are more than the bad points, then you take it. This is exactly in direct contradiction, not contradiction, in a diametrically opposite ruling to the alcohol and gambling. There were more harms, less benefits. God says stay away. Your Ayatollah Sistani is saying if you have death of the COVID-19 vaccine. But if you find the harms are less and the benefits are more, then take it. But when you have these conspiracy theories, people from within our community still harbor doubts. Again, Agha Sistani's very categorically said, refer to the medical experts, see what the expert says, and if you're satisfied, then you go ahead. But he's given the criteria. There may be harms, but if the benefits are more, then go for it. So you have the ability of the social media to brainwash. The second problem that we have about the social media is that with the social media exploding exponentially in the COVID-19 world, this COVID-19, and again, I repeat and reiterate, I'm limiting my talk to the framework of religion, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. The virtual world has opened the doors to pseudo scholars. And when I talk about, look, I'm a student, a small little student of Islam. But what I can see is that this explosion of internet and the social media and the online setups that have been coming up, taking use of social media, it has opened up a playing field for pseudo scholars. And I say pseudo scholars means scholars who are speaking on behalf of Islam without having appropriate background abilities to understand Islam. As a result of it, we have scholars who promote wrong ideologies, who give incorrect fiqh rulings. The concept, because they've not gone to the Hausa, some of them, not all, but some of them, then they pick up an online lecture, they transcribe it, then they repeat the same lecture in their own words, trying to explain a concept in that lecture by means of their own words and limited knowledge. And in the end, there's a mishmash of a concept and fiqh and religion, and it's wizr and babal, problem for the speaker, problem for the listeners. This is one of the harms of social media. While the benefits are there, it provides such pseudo individuals to come up to the member and then promote themselves, and then you have problems with regards to religion, and then you have scholars they already have a problem in trying to keep the community intact. Now they've got another problem in trying to solve the problems that this particular scholar, pseudo scholar, has said in terms of incorrect rulings of fiqh. So this is the second problem that we have with social media. And the third, again, a very important social media problem is an excessive use of social media, and I'm including YouTube in this, it forms a habit for an individual to be dependent on social media as opposed to, and virtual interaction as opposed to physical interaction. Meaning what? Meaning this, that an excessive dependence on social media and virtual setups make a person habituated to that environment and prefer that environment to a physical environment. And so over the last few years, we've seen this increased tendency amongst the Mu'mineen, a good section of our community who prefer to, I'm not talking about the COVID-19 scenario now, that is an entirely different setup, but even pre-COVID-19, you had people who would be more inclined to listen to lectures or attend the munasabat, whether it's shahadat or wafat or wiladat, at home on YouTube rather than come to the mosque or the Imam Bargahs or the Islamic centers. This has a major issue. Replacing a physical environment and interaction by means of a virtual environment and interaction. They might say we are getting what we want in terms of content at home on the screens via YouTube, as we would have got when we would have gone to the Imam Bargahs. But there is one major factor that is being overlooked over here. And that major factor is that the concept of going to the Imam Bargah to attend to programs related to religion is not just only about content. It's about the spiritual impact that those things have in the environment of the Imam Bargah. So let me explain an incident to you to clarify this point. One day a person comes to the sixth Imam, and he says, Yabna Rasulullah, I think I have become a munafiq, I've become a hypocrite. So the Imam says, why do you think you've become a hypocrite? He said, Yabna Rasulullah, the reason I see this is that when I come in your presence,
What happened, man? You in the rush or something? Are you in the rush or something?
are we okay to speak?
Ji Maulana Sahab.
Ji Maulana Sahab. Apologies.
The sixth Imam comes, comes to the sixth Imam and says, Yabna Rasulullah, I think I've become a munafiq. Imam says, why so? He says, the reason is that when I'm in your presence, I forget the world. I forget the interaction of the world. I forget the attractions and the attachments of the world. I forget the concept that I have to spend my entire day earning money. My mind goes to the akhirat. My mind goes to the taqwa of God, to the fear of God, to the qabr, to the akhirat, to the barzakh, to the jahannam, to the jannah. That's what I begin to think. But the moment I turn away from you and go back outside the mosque or outside from your presence, I'm again overcome by the world. Again, I'm attached to the world. Again, I get attracted to the world. Again, it's all dunya, dunya, dunya for me. There is no place of akhirat in my life. And Imam says, no, that's not hypocrisy. He says, and then why is it that when I'm in your presence, I'm inclined to turn towards the akhirah, but away from your presence, the world and its enchantments capture me. Imam says the reason is that when you are in our presence, our overwhelming spiritual presence overcomes you and makes you part of the setup that we come from. The radiation of our spirituality overcomes you, and you begin to think the way we think, and you begin to desire things as we desire. But the moment you go away from us, you turn away, you go distant from the spiritual impact of our presence, then the world comes and takes you again towards itself. Our presence and our spiritual impact is what makes you turn towards the akhirah. This is exactly the point that is overlooked by those who are so habituated and are so inclined to replace the physical presence in the Imam Barga with the virtual setup in the house. They get the content, but they don't get the presence of a Masoom. Whereas you and I know very well from the traditions of the Masoomin, from the traditions from the Sunnah of the ulama, that when you have the Masajid, when you have the Majlis taking place in an Imam Barga, where the reciter isn't present before you, the majlis is going on, a masoom comes over there. How many times have you not heard that when the Masab of Imam Hussain is going on, the presence of Bibi Fatima Zahra in her barzakhi form comes to that place? How many times have you not heard that when the Masab of Hadrat Abbas goes around wherever, the presence of Imam Zamana is there? He makes it a point to attend the majlis where the Masab of Hadrat Abbas is there. When you have the presence of these individuals there, when you have the presence of angels, where the Riwayat said, wherever there is the Majlis of Hussain, wherever there is the Dhikr of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the angels come. All of these individuals and spiritually pure individuals and entities, when they are at a place, they exude, they ooze spirituality, which then enhances our spiritual levels to protect us from the vagaries of this dunya, which unfortunately is not available to us in the houses. So this is one problem that we have, three problems that we had, the last one I just mentioned. However, having understood the problem, it becomes also important for us to know that just knowing the problems is not going to solve things for us. What is going to solve our problem is to make an effort. So for example, if somebody is close to the level of being diabetes, so now if he has to move away from his diabetic range or the boundary, he's being told, look, if you want to go out from this range and become more easy on your health, then you need to, one, change your diet, two, change your lifestyle, replace what you've been eating, junk food and the likes, with more hygienic and more green conscious food. And then you need to change the lifestyle. If it's sedentary, then you need to become more active in terms of sports, in terms of physical exercise. And the person, if he's really interested, changes his diet, changes his lifestyle. As a result of it, the sugar levels are then brought under control. So knowing the detriments will not solve the problem. Working to offset the detriment will solve the problem. Having known the problem with social media when it comes to religion, we also need to work towards solving the problem. The problem of diabetes solved by changing one's lifestyle and one's diet, as a result of which then a person gets a soundness of health. Similarly, to change and overcome the detriments of social media, we need to do something, in the absence of which we will only know the detriments, but we will not be able to have solved the problem. And in order to solve this problem, one very important thing that we need to understand is that we need to take care of those that are under us when it comes to social media. And I was reading this report about a professor from Temple University. And the professor was saying that social media problems and peer pressure problems, they start surfacing within individuals from the time they become adolescents. And they continue up to the time of the age of 15. After 15, the peer pressure and the social media tend to reduce, because then the individual is more able to set boundaries for themselves. Now, if this is the case, then we've got individuals who are under us, and we are individuals who are probably our relatives, our siblings, our friends. And it is very important for us to take them under our control before things get out of hand. And again, this is an incident, this is something that has been taught to us by the sixth Imam. All of us are aware that about the tradition of the Holy Prophet when he says that after me, there will be 73 sects. And there's one sect, Firqatun Najiyah. One of these sects will be the one that will be the successful one, that will be having deliverance and that will get salvation. 73 sects. Out of these 73 sects, one of the sects is referred to as the Murjites in English, and in Arabic, Al-Murji'ah. This Al-Murji'ah was a group that believed in one concept. And it started at the time of the existence, at the time just after Amirul Mu'mineen was martyred, after the Shahadat of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. At the time when Amirul Mu'mineen was martyred, you know what happened? The PR of Muawiyah was such that when the people in Sham came to know that Amirul Mu'mineen was martyred in the Masjid al-Kufa, they would ask, but what was Ali doing in Masjid al-Kufa? Ali was praying namaz, but did Ali even pray namaz that he had to go to the mosque to be subsequently be killed by Ibn Muljam? It doesn't sound right. The PR was so bad. And it all started, after the incident of Thaqif, that the personality of Ali was made to be given a passion. So a time comes when people would speak good about Ali, like Ammar and Miqdar and Salman, and there were people who would be speaking evil and bad about Ali, like Muawiyah and Ash'as ibn Qais and the likes of them. People would be praising Ali, and there would be others like Muawiyah for years, 70,000. It's a metaphorical statement to highlight the numerous members or the pulpits that would be used to curse Amirul Mu'mineen. When this incident took place, when the society was polarized between those who supported Amirul Mu'mineen and those who were abusing Amirul Mu'mineen, Muhammad Hanafiya's son by the name of Hassan, he did not like his grandfather, Amirul Mu'mineen. Hassan is the son of Muhammad Hanafiya. Muhammad Hanafiya had named one of his sons as Hassan, Hassan ibn Muhammad Hanafiya. He did not like what was going on. At that time, Muhammad Hanafiya was very old. So he comes up with a concept stating that, and look at how things come. It started off very simply, but then it metamorphosed into something that was massive. So he comes and says, I don't like people cursing my grandfather, so I'm going to come up with a concept to stop this curse on Ali. The intention was good, but look where it led to. So he comes to the society and says, look, we're not going to say anything bad about Ali. We're not going to say anything bad about the first Khalifa, the second Khalifa, the third Khalifa. What they have done, what Ali has done, has got nothing to do with us. That is their actions. It's got to be dealt with God. God will deal with the first Khalifa, the second Khalifa, the third Khalifa, and Amir al-Mu'mineen as he wants. We do irja, and from there comes the word murja'a. Irja means we give and hand over the affairs of these individuals to the hands of God for him to decide. We neither talk bad about the other Khalifas, nor do we talk bad about Amir al-Mu'mineen. We don't curse the Khalifas, we don't curse Amir al-Mu'mineen. We let things stand aside. Whatever has been done, let it be done. We leave it to God. What he wanted to do was that by saying this, he wanted to avoid the sub and the shatm and the abuse of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And to a certain extent, he writes a booklet explaining this concept. This booklet reaches the hands of Muhammad the Hanafiya. When he reads this, what his son has done, he flies into a rage, calls Hassan, his son, and slaps him. He says, do you know what you have done? He says, Baba, I have wanted to protect my grandfather from being cursed and abused, and hence I've put forward so that people don't curse my grandfather. Muhammad the Hanafiya says, you do not know what you have let out of the bag. This will only come in decades to come, that you will realize the fitna that this concept will create. And fitna it did create. Because as time went by, this concept gathered steam, became a shopper's market for people. Why? Because it provided a beautiful place, a beautiful leeway for the oppressors and the dhalimeen to do their dhulm, and then in order to avoid themselves from rebuke and censure, they would say, look, the Murji'ite belief is so nice that we won't censure and rebuke anybody who does evil, because we will hand those things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will deal with them on the day of judgment. In the world, we are not supposed to criticize anybody, as Hassan ibn Muhammad al-Hanafi in his booklet has mentioned. And specifically the dhalimeen of the Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbas, the main proponents and the followers of this belief, because now under the shade of this belief, they could do as much madhalim and dhulm as they wanted and at the same time cocoon themselves from any rebuke and censure and blame, because they would say the belief of the Murji'ites is that whatever somebody does, we don't criticize and rebuke them. We leave the affairs to God. God will deal with them on the day of judgment. We don't do anything in this world. In this world, we just follow them. We do their ittiba, we do their farma bardari. We don't oppose them, which was what the Bani Abbas and the Bani Umayyad Dhalimeen wanted. What Hassan ibn Muhammad al-Hanafiya started with a good intention, little realizing the fallaciousness of his argument, which was picked up by his father Muhammad al-Hanafiya, proved to be correct in the years to come, till comes the time of the sixth Imam. And sixth Imam, at that time, this entire concept was at its ouge. Approximately 100 years had passed with Bani Umayyah. Bani Abbas is now on the helm, about to take control. And this belief of the Murji'ites was what they wanted, to cast a curtain over their dhulm, not to be rebuked and censored or censured by people in this world, with the concept that leave the affairs of these zalimeen to God, he will deal with them. They would continue to do their oppression. They would continue to do the dhulm, live their life in grandeur, and say, okay, we will see what happens on the day of judgment. Till the time of the sixth Imam, this was so expansive and explosive concept that the sixth Imam has narrated a tradition. And this is what I want to talk to you about social media. The sixth Imam has said, خُذِ أَطْفَالَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تَأْخُذَهُمُ الْمُرْجِعَةِ. This is, take care of your children. Brainwash them with the concepts of the Ahlul Bayt before the Murji'ites come and brainwash them with their batil ideology. This one sentence, خُذُوا أَطْفَالَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تَأْخُذَهُمُ الْمُرْجِعَةِ. Take hold of your children, imbibe appropriate and correct ideologies in their minds before they are taken over by the Murji'ites and imbibed with their batil ideology. This is a rule that we need to use with respect to social media. Before our children are exposed to the vagaries and the evils of social media, it becomes important for us that we take hold of our children and our siblings and our friends and make sure that we imbibe on them the correct concept of social media, so that they don't go to those XXX websites, they don't go to those XXX discussions, they don't go to dating websites. We imbibe our thought processes into them before the society takes hold of their mindset, after which there will be a point of no return. So we talked about the social media. It has its benefits, but it also has its evils. We mentioned 3 evils of the social media with respect to religion, and with respect to having understood the solution given by the 6th Imam. Before our children fall prey to the social media, we need to take over. Look, somebody who's become diabetic, somebody who's got cancer, somebody who's got into some chronic diseases, you can't really do much about it. What I'm focusing on is not for those who are chronically in trouble, but I'm trying to look at what can we do for the future, because the future is what holds for us. And the future is dependent on our little children and little siblings and little friends. And we need to hold them, explain to them. The society, the centers all have their role to play in providing appropriate information and knowledge and concepts about social media, so that then when this child becomes a teenager, becomes into 20s, becomes into late 20s, he knows that when he goes onto social media, there will be pitfalls and evils, and there will be manafi'un linnas, the benefit for mankind. And he's already got his mind tuned to navigate through the evils of social media and benefit from the beneficial things and the good things of social media, which is what we want. Take the good things, leave the bad things, so that we can benefit from it in this world, and if you're using religion, into the akhirat as well. So with this portion, I think, yeah, I've concluded the social media. It's 9:16 over here, which is approximately a little more than a half an hour. So we can then leave the floor open for questions. And if we get questions on peer pressure, then we can talk about the peer pressure as well.
It was a privilege listening to you. Moving on to the next part of the seminar, if anyone of you have any questions, if you can raise your hands in Zoom or send in a chat message, we'll then ask Moulana Sahib on your behalf, and then we'll move on from there.
I have a question, Moulana Sahib. Asad here. Yeah. We receive some messages on social media, all of us, on WhatsApp type of chats and all. You receive some good messages quoting some hadith from Ahlul Bayt, and there is some reference also provided of some book. So, for our benefit and benefit of the community here, could you let us know what are the list of genuine sources that a Shia Athnashari should, follow, basically before deciding whether the hadith that has been sent to me, whether it is genuine or not? I mean, like Biharul Anwar, what are the other genuine sources? Do we have a definite list?
Brother Asad, I think that's a very, very important question. And probably what I might tell you, it might not be what everybody might be wanting to listen. But understand this. You asked me to provide a list of references where the books are authentic, the hadith are authentic, and based on their authenticity, we are able to understand whether a certain hadith that comes to us is to be accepted or not. Look, this is where and I totally get where you're leading to in terms of taking me to explain it to the audience. Look, the science of hadith is so deep and so profound that you need to have spent at least several years before you can actually go to the concept and say, I can understand whether a certain hadith is correct or not correct. We are not like our brothers, Sunni brothers, who say that they've got 6 books in which every hadith in those books are sahih. So they've got the Sahih Sitta. They say these 6 books are so sahih. Sitta means 6. Sahih means six books. The 6 truthful and sahih books. What they claim is that every hadith in these books are sahih and can be taken and used by every single individual on the road. We, the Shiites, don't have that concept. We have books which are regarded, the books are regarded as authentic because, the majority of the hadith in those books are correct. But nobody says and nobody can say. So for example, you've got the Kutub Arba, you got Al-Kafi, you got At-Tahdhib, you got Man La Yahdaruhu Islam, and you've got numerous other books. So the Kutub Arba, you've got books like Bihar Lanwar, you've got books like Safinatul Bihar. These are all books of hadith, but nobody says, and no scholar, even those who have written this, Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Kulaini, Sheikh Kulaini, who's authored Al-Kafi, never has gone on to state all of my hadith are sahih. And you will find one of the reasons where the Maraji differ in fatwa is because one hadith is accepted by a certain marja as sahih, but according to the criteria set by another marja, that hadith might not fit up to his criteria. So he will not take the hadith. As a result of it, his rulings will differ from that marja who's taken the hadith. As a result of it, when you ask me to tell you a book, even in Usul al-Kafi, there are traditions, and everybody knows any book that you want to first talk about hadith is al-Kafi. Even in al-Kafi, you will find hadith and traditions who are, in the eyes of the Maraji, not sahih. So if I were to tell you al-Kafi, and the person were to pick up that particular hadith which the Maraji say are not sahih, it defeats the purpose. I can tell you, because I've translated one book from Allama Majlisi. And I'm just telling you, I won't tell you the name of the book, but I will tell you that even in books of Allama Majlisi, I have seen traditions in which the tradition says, and I'm saying this because I've translated it, and it cannot be published, so that had to be then erased. It says the earth, the earth is stationed between the horns of a bull in space. The earth, the globe, the world exists and is stationed between the horns of a bull in space. Now, Allama Majlisi has narrated this. Now tell me which individual of grade 5, forget about the others, will be able to accept this, that the earth is stationed in the skies between the horns of a bull in space. So what these individuals planned to do was to collect as many ahadith as possible, because the efforts in those times were to take away all the ahadith of the Masoom. What they said is, whatever we get, we are going to collect it so that they are not lost. Then we leave it to the experts who will pick up the hadith, put in the parameters of sahih, of sihha and correctness, and find out whether that particular hadith or the others are correct or not correct. What this means is that even if you get a hadith from a book in WhatsApp with the reference, first of all, I have seen many cases whereby there have been instances of many cases when a hadith comes in WhatsApp. Look, we have access to these books. So when these hadith comes, we know, we can immediately verify. And there have been so many instances when a hadith has been referred to a certain source and we don't find that source available at all. In so-and-so book, on so-and-so page number and hadith number so-and-so. You go to various publications, 1940 printed, 1950, 1975, 1990, 2000. In none of the prints you find that hadith present. So where does this individual get the reference? But in general, people, when they receive it, they say, oh, mashallah, this is the name of the book is given, the page number is given, the hadith number is given, so this must be correct. But ask me and I will tell you, this hadith does not exist in any of the print versions of this book. So first of all, when you get a reference, does not mean that book or that hadith is correct. That's point number one. Point number two is that even if you get the reference, how do you know that this hadith is sahih? Because none of these messages that come on WhatsApp or on social media or in posts or on Instagram or on Facebook or Facebook Messenger, none of them mention the narrator, the chain of narrators. If you don't know the chain of narrators, you will never be able to identify whether this hadith is sahih or not sahih, irrespective of whether the entire reference of that hadith is given or not. So what it means is, first, when certain hadith comes on WhatsApp with the reference, it does not mean that that hadith is found in the book that has been referred to. One. Second, assuming that the hadith is there in the book that has been given as reference, there is no guarantee that that hadith is sahih. So what is the solution now, Asad Bhai? That if you get something on WhatsApp, the solution is simple. If you get a certain prescription, you can't start debating, because you will need to take it to a doctor. Somebody is having a heart problem in the house, and somebody else comes and says, oh Mara Nazik, I feel that ye jo hai nuskha sabse behtareen nuskha inke liye, aap unko de dijiye. ये बहुत ही बेहतरीन Ayurvedic medicine है, और I've seen numerous benefits out of this, so give it to your father. This person first will take it to the GP or to the cardiologist and say, look, this is what has come to me. Do I use it? And he'll say, hello, my friend, this is nonsense. Just keep it. Just throw it into the bin. This is going to kill your father. Similarly, when you get a hadith like this, we cannot take it up. It needs to be escalated to the scholars. Take it to the Moulanas, take it to the scholars, to the alims, to the resident alims who are there in your centers, in your vicinity, in your locality. And alhamdulillah, Melbourne is graced to have so many scholars, mashallah. Take the hadith to those people. Let ordinary, general, laymen, public not take it upon themselves to identify whether a hadith is correct or not correct just because it has been sent on WhatsApp and forwarded 5 million times with references given. There, that Ayurvedic medicine could just take the life of the person. Here, this particular tradition could take the iman of the person. And hence we need to be very careful. Let not get carried away by this, by what comes into the WhatsApp and social media, because this is something that really, really is detrimental to one's iman.
Jazakallah, Moulana Sahab. Thank you very much. That was very comprehensive.
We have the next question from Sayyid Khaim Haider Jafri. Beta, do you want to ask this question to Moulana Sahab?
Assalamu alaikum, Moulana.
Alaikum salam.
Can you hear me?
You're a little feeble. If you could just increase your volume.
Okay. Can you now hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Moulana, I wanted to ask that when we recite Dua Tawassul every Tuesday, so if we have done the guna as well, अगर हमने जो है गुना हर वक्त किया हो, हर वक्त करते रहते गुना, तो जो हमने दुआ तवस्सुल पढ़ी है, तो उसका जो हमें सवाब पहुंचेगा, उससे हमारे गुनाह माफ हो जाएंगे.
बट जो है वो गुनाह की जो है वो दो किस्में होती हैं. एक किस्म ये होती है कि जो है वो दुआ तवस्सुल से जो है वो माफ हो जाती है. दूसरी किस्म गुनाह की वो होती है कि जो है उसके लिए खुसूसी तौर पर जो है वो गुनाह के लिए यू विल नीड टू डू इस्तिग़फ़ार. सो जो छोटे मोटे गुनाह होते हैं ना, दुआ तवस्सुल पढ़ने के बाद जो है अगर तो सिर्फ दुआ तवस्सुल पढ़ लिया ना, तो वो जो है वो गुनाह माफ कर देते. और जो संगीन गुनाह, जो बड़े बड़े गुनाह होते हैं ना, जैसे कि मसलन झूठ का गुनाह या जो है वालिदैन के साथ बदतमीजी का गुनाह, इसके लिए जो है सिर्फ दुआ तवस्सुल पढ़ने से जो है इंसान की गुनाह माफ नहीं होते. इंसान को जो है खुदा के पास वो स्पेसिफिक गुनाह को जाहिर करना होगा कि परवरदिगारा मुझसे ये गुनाह हुए हैं, और खुसूसी तौर पर वो गुनाह की मगफिरत की जो है वो भीख और गुजारिश करनी होगी. So if you're asking me just by reciting Dua Tawassul, all the sins would get forgiven? Answer is yes and no. Yes, part of the sins would be forgiven just by reciting Dua Tawassul, because Quran says good deeds eat away evil deeds. नेकियां जो है बुराइयों को जो है खा जाती हैं, तो सर्टन गुनाह जो है दुआ तवस्सुल के पढ़ने से जो है चले जाएंगे. बट जो बड़े बड़े गुनाह होते हैं उसको खुदा कहता है तुम याद करो, पशीमान हो, निदामत का इजहार करो, खुदा की बारगाह में जाओ, गिड़गिड़ा कर जो है इस्तगफार करो, फिर खुदा कहेगा क्योंकि ये इतने बड़े गुनाह हैं और तुम खुसूसियत के तौर पर जो है मुझसे माफी मांग रहे हो तो मैं तुम्हें माफ करूं. So there are certain things you have to specifically seek forgiveness from them because they just do not get carried away or erased because of dua tawassul.
Okay. Thank you, Moulana.
Welcome, beta.
Jazakallah Maulana Sahab. We've got the next question from again a kid, Hasnain Unia. His question goes like this: Assalamu alaikum Moulana Sahab. How do we explain and convince youth that the guidance from Islam or Imam alayhi salam is beneficial or ideal for them as compared to social media websites or Google?
This is also a very good question, Hasnain. Look, there are several things that affect the development of an individual. And science has proven it, and religion has attested to it centuries ago. So one of the things that modify or bring about the development of a child and his mindset is genetics. Yani what comes from the parents. Second thing that comes are the teachers. The teachers mold a student, mold an individual. Third is the environment. Environment plays a very important role in changing the mindset of an individual. If the environment is positive, an individual who comes from a negative parents would become positive. At the same time, if the environment is negative, even if a person is born in the house of a masoom, has the ability to go astray. So I'll give you an example of the first one. You had Muawiyah, the son of Yazid, who was a muhib of the Ahlul Bayt, to such an extent that he was willing, when Yazid died and he became the Khalifa, he was willing to give up the Khilafah to Imam Sajjad, that this is your right. My father has done dhulm by killing your father. I'm giving it, wanting to give it to you. But then the Bani Marwan did not want that to happen and had him murdered, and the Hukumat went into the hands of Bani Marwan and Bani Marwan. So this is the example that in an evil father gets a good son. But we also have examples where a good father gets an evil son. Like the case of Ja'far al-Kadhab. Ja'far al-Kadhab was the son of an imam, was the brother of an imam, and he stood up against the 12th imam to claim his imam. He was the brother of the 11th imam. He was the son of the 10th imam. But yet when the 11th imam said, my son 5-year-old is going to be the imam, next imam, he contested. Then when the 11th imam passed away, he says, I am the imam. So a person who was born to an imam goes deviated. Why? Because Riwayat says this Ja'far al-Kadhab used to frequent the darbar of Bani Abbas. As a result of it, his interaction with those people got his mindset to be changed despite him being born in the family of a Masoom. What this shows us that if we want, first of all, to purify the mindset of the child, you might look, if you have a vessel that is dirty, whatever water, Hasnain, you put inside is going to become dirty. The only time the water that you put inside the vessel does not get dirty is will clean the vessel from inside. Once the vessel is clean from inside, then you put the water remains clean. For such individuals, the young people whose mindset needs to be changed and made aware of the harms of social media, the first and very important is to make sure that the family environment that they face in the house is correct. What I'm saying is that the people in the family first need to follow Islam for this child to understand the importance of Islam. If the parents are following the teachings of Imam Sadiq, then the son will follow the teachings of Imam Sadiq. Then when you tell him, Imam Sadiq says, be careful, don't do this, it will carry weight. But if the parents in the house that are providing him the environment are flouting the rulings of Imam Sadiq, Imam Sadiq says, Baba, wear hijab. The mother doesn't wear hijab. Imam Sadiq says, don't listen to music. The father, from the time he opens his eyes, it's all about, hey, Google, play me this music. Hey, Alexa, play me this music. When the parents flout the rulings of the sixth Imam, don't expect the child to follow the rulings of the sixth Imam. So if a child needs to be explained, first and foremost, the environment in the family needs to be ascertained and made sure that it's an Islamic environment. Once that is there, you will find that without any problem, this child, when you talk to him about Imam Sadiq, will accept it. Why? Because he's seeing his father following Imam Sadiq. He's seeing his mother following Imam Sadiq. So it becomes a non-entity for him, a no-brainer for him to follow. When you say Imam Sadiq says this, you say, oh, Imam said this, I will follow it. But if you have a dichotomy कि घर का माहौल कुछ और है, जो environment उसे मिल रहा है वो कुछ और है, और हम उसे जो है उस environment से जो है we want to take him on a different direction, that is going to be a problem. So the first is to get the vessel cleaned. Once the vessel gets clean, whatever you put inside will remain clean. But the vessel remains dirty, however hard you try. It will be an onerous task to get anything into this individual. The environment that he's repeatedly and regularly being exposed to at home is not an appropriate one that has been given by Imam Sadiq.
Jazakallah, Moulana Sahib. We've got another question from YouTube from brother Mohsin Sheikh. His question goes, and I quote, how can children truncate their addiction of social media, unquote.
I turn for this answer, I turn you back to that ruling given by the sixth Imam about the Murji'ites. And there are certain, at times the Imams have said, we will give you alayna ilqa'ul usul wa alaykum ikhrajul furu'. Look, I will give you general principles. Those general principles are so profound that you will be able to pick out from them answers to your questions up to the day of judgment. You have an incident of the life of the sixth Imam. And I'm just giving an example on this. One small sentence becomes so powerful that the Maraji discussed that sentence for 2 years in the Hawza Ilmiya of Najaf and Qum. So a person comes to the sixth Imam and says, Yabna Rasul, I've got a problem. Look how small it is. But when Imam says, look, I'm going to give you the tools that will be able to take care of your deen and dunya up to the day of judgment, this is what it means. So he comes to the Imam and says, Yabna Rasulullah, I'm having a problem. He says, what? He says, मैं सवेरे घर से निकला था तो वुजू करके निकला. But now at the time of Dhuhr, I'm doubting, is my wudu baqi or not baqi? If it's baqi, if it's still there, if it's still valid, then I don't need to do wudu. I can just go to the musalla and pray my Dhuhr prayers. But if it is not baqi, then I'll have to do wudu again. But I don't know. Did I sleep? Did I pass wind? Did something happen as a result of which my wudu became invalidated? Imam states one sentence. He says, لا تنقض اليقين بالشك. Do not break your yaqeen by means of your shak. Do not truncate your yaqeen by means of shak. Meaning what? You had yaqeen that you did wudu in the morning. Now you are having shak whether that wudu is still baqi or not baqi. Imam says yaqeen is at a higher manzilat, shak is at a lower manzilat. Do not cut the feet of your yaqeen by means of shak. Meaning, because you were certain that you did wudu in the morning and you're doubting that your wudu was broken, that doubt will stand no value, that yaqeen will stand value, consider your wudu to be valid, just go and pray your dhuhr and prayers without doing wudu again. ठीक है, खलास, बात खत्म. This one sentence is so powerful that this becomes the basis for a rule in the Hawza, which is referred to as Qa'idatul Istishab. This Qa'idatul Istishab is such a powerful qaida that this one qaida is debated for 2 years by the Maraji when they're teaching their students in the Hawza Ilmiya of Qum. 2 years. And this one sentence is able to solve more than 500 fiqhi rulings that a person can face in a person's life. Why I'm saying this? Come back to the question. When we come to the point when the Imam says, Imam gave the ruling when he says that, look, خُذُوا أَطْفَالَكُمْ, take your children before the murji'ites take them. The solution to the question is this, that we first need to get our children accustomed to our mindset and the teachings of Islam before we can sort anything out with them. Imran bhai, could you just repeat the last part of the question if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. It's how can children truncate their addiction of social media?
Yes. When the Imam says, take hold of your children before the murji'ites take over them, meaning what? Don't leave a vacuum for your children. Because if you leave a vacuum for the children, then the society will come and take hold of the children. And if they take hold of your children, then they will feed your children what they want to feed. And then your children will not have space in their minds for your concepts. When you want to truncate their addiction to social media, one of the reasons that you find children taking to social media is when they do not get appropriate attention from their family members at home. So you have the father's busy with his work, the mother's busy with their works, the siblings busy with their work. This child, what does he do? He picks up the phone. What does he do? He goes onto the internet. What does he do? Facebook, Instagram, chatter. Why? Because he was not taken over by the family. As a result of it, a vacuum was there due to which the society has taken over this individual. If this society's individual attraction needs to be truncated, the families need to realize they need to spend more time with the children. Why is it at times we see that a house does not have the discipline that anybody comes at whatever times, eats and goes. The father comes, eats, goes. Mother comes, eats, goes. Children come, eat and go. Whereas in England, we have a family that eats together, stays together. Why do we not have time where we spend the collective setups with our children? We spend time with them. Why is it that the parents are only with their friends on the phone? Because if you are showing them that the parents are on the phone, then the children will go on the phone. A lot of our problems emanate from home. And if we want our children to get out of the addiction, if we want our children to stay away from social media, I'm not saying completely. I'm not saying that social media is good at times. But the excessive addiction, then the time has to be taken over by the family members. They sit together, they joke together, they talk together, they look at television shows together, they have the Dua Kumail program together. In the pandemic, they have Ziyarat Ashura program together. When the child will be able to spend more time with the family, he will not feel the need to go so inherently and so vociferously towards the social media. And then slowly the addiction starts. Ideally, we should not be looking at a cure. If somebody's addicted and we take him out. Yes, that should be one of the aims. But a more profound aim is prevention is better than cure. Let not our children become addicted to social media, that we have the problem of how to remove that addiction, which is a different level altogether. So it starts right before they get addicted. We give them appropriate time. We give them appropriate attention. If the parents give the children attention in the house, that child will never, inshallah, seek attention from friends and social media. That itself will cut down his dependence on social media, and then we prevent him from being subjected to all those negative thoughts and concepts that are flooding the social media market.
I've got Dr. Syed Masood Saab who would like to ask you a question.
Assalamu alaikum, Moulana Sahab. It's a very good question and very good session. My question is related to the first question about receiving various hadiths by youth or internet and how to verify. And you gave a very good solution that we should talk to local resident alim who can verify whether the hadith is correct. So, but sometimes the problem is that sometimes resident alim is not available, or even if it's available, it is quite possible that he may not know that particular hadith because there are thousands and thousands of hadiths and so many books. So my question is there any easier way to verify such hadiths? For example, is there any Shia website where we can type that hadith or type the source and then the genuine hadith will come on the screen? So are you aware of any such website where we can easily verify online? Because nowadays online resources are quite common.
Dr. Saab, it's a good question. I will just want to alert you on one thing. कि जैसे मैंने पहले अर्ज किया कि a lot of these hadith, while they may be in books, you will not get a website that says this hadith is correct. In the sense that different mujtahideen have different parameters to identify whether a hadith is correct. So for example, you have you had that magnum opus of Marhum Ayatollah Khui, which are called Mu'jamu Rijal al-Ahadith, where he has taken approximately 15,000 narrators of hadith and gone through their life history and recorded it in this magnum opus of his. अब मसला क्या होता है कि at times एक रावी की लाइफ हिस्ट्री में कुछ ऐसा इंसिडेंट होता है कि one marja would take it as a negative trait and the other marja might take it as a positive trait. Those who has taken it as a positive trait will say this hadith narrated by this individual is sahih. But the marja who has taken that incident as a negative trait will say this is a negative trait of this ravi, so we cannot take the accept his hadith. As a result of it, this hadith becomes weak. So you will not find a place where you can guarantee and say all the hadith that I'm putting will get an answer that is sahih in the eyes of everybody. There are very few hadith that, you know, like for example, Ghadir, nobody doubts Ghadir. Mubahala, nobody doubts Mubahala. But to get one website which says that you put in a hadith and it comes and says it's sahih or not, it's not acceptable. If you will not find it. So what is the solution? And I will never try as much as possible to leave a problem. I will always try to give you a solution. So this is a problem. You cannot get a website. So what is the best option? The best option for us, and I sometimes I'm at a loss to understand that you've got such a, we've got such a simple solution, but we still have so many differences, debates, fulan, munazarat, you know, back and forth with people in terms of arguments, trying to solve a problem. Whereas the imams have left a very important door open to us, that of marja'iyat. You've got a marja with you. You've got a daftar with you. So if we have a problem, why are we fighting and debating outside? अगर कोई बातिल, अगर जो कोई फिक्र या कोई अफकार ऐसे है कि जो यानी मुनाजा हो रहा है उस पे और मुख्तलिफ है और people are having different opinions, I mean, why have debates? Just put up that issue and escalate it to Ayatollah Sistani. अगर ये हमारा मसला है, आप हमें बताइए. There are 3 volumes of a book written by Ayatollah, Marhum Ayatollah Khui, by the name of Sirat al-Najat. ये Sirat al-Najat 3 jildon par hai, mustamil. And this entire 3 volumes are istifta'at, questions that people had asked Ayatollah Sistani. He had answered over a period of 30-40 years. ये 3 jildon mein mustamil hai. अब ये मर्जा हमारा खुद जो है वो हजारों क्वेश्चंस को जब जवाब दिया है, यानी यकीनन में इतना इत्मीनान मिलता है कि one of these questions that is there in this book would probably be the question I'm having a problem with.
Yes.
इसी तरह आयतुल्लाह सिस्तानी के दफ्तर है. So for example, अगर जो आप जो है ऑस्ट्रेलिया में बैठकर आगा सिस्तानी के वकील तो हो गए, वहाँ उनके साथ राब्ता आप कर सकते हैं. अगर जो उनके साथ नहीं है तो इंटरनेट पे najaf.org है, sistani.org है, ये 2 वेबसाइट है. वहाँ आप इंग्लिश में भी जवाब लिख सकते हैं, आप जो है वो उर्दू में भी सवाल लिख सकते हैं, आप जो है वो फारसी में, अरबी में सवाल लिख सकते हैं और अकॉर्डिंगली उनका डिपार्टमेंट विल आंसर यू. एक मर्तबा अगर आपके पास मर्जाए तकलीद के दफ्तर से कोई जवाब आ गया तो आप खुदा के सामने बरी जिम्मा हो जाते हैं. फिर अगर तो आपको गलत इंफॉर्मेशन खुदा न खास्ता मिल भी जाती है तो क़यामत के दिन आप मसूल नहीं होंगे. The daftar and the people who are handling it will be answerable to God on the day of judgment that why was this wrong given information given wrong to you. But हमारा तो हम तो बड़ी जिम्मा हो जाते हैं ना. हमारा और आपका मसला क्या होता है कि हम अपनी जान बचाएं, हमारे पर दूर करें, खबर में हमें जो है वो मुनकर और नकीर के सवालों का जवाब देना ना पड़े. If we approach these websites of these maraji, देखिए I'm not saying कि आप आज डालिएगा तो 2 घंटे में जवाब मिल जाए. हफ्ता लगता है, 10 दिन लगता है, 15 दिन लगता है. तो हम जो है वो बड़े-बड़े टेस्ट करने जाते हैं तो भी तो हमें वेटिंग का पीरियड होता ही. फॉर ایگزامپل کیٹریکٹ آپریشن کے لیے NHS 4 مہینے کے لیے انتظار کراتی ہے. اب تو کووڈ جو ہے 8 مہینے 1 سال ہو گیا. بس آپ جو ہے وہ اللہ اللہ کرتے رہیے کہ آپ بچ جائے وہ تو دوسری آنکھ خراب نہ ہو جائے, ورنہ تو پھر وہ تو جو ہے انسان تو ہر چیز جو ہے وہ فلفور تو بتایا تو جو ہے وہ جواب نہیں ملتا, لیکن دیر سے ملتا ہے لیکن ملتا ہے. اور جب ملے گا تو آپ اور ہم بری ذمہ ہو جائیں گے, خدا کے سامنے مسئول نہیں رہیں گے, کیونکہ ہم کہیں گے آپ تیرے امام کا نائب جو تھا اس نے ہمیں جواب دیا اس کے دفتر میں, اب ہمیں کیا بتا کہ صحیح, اب تو انہیں سے پوچھ لیں. آپ سمجھتے میری بات؟
جی ہاں جی ہاں جی.
Of this option, so if we have hadith where we are really plagued, اور اگر جو آپ کسی مولانا ریزیڈنٹ عالم ایکسس نہیں ہے یا وہ خود وہ معذوریت پیش کرتے ہیں, تو پھر ہمارے پاس آپشن ہے کہ یہ حدیث کو لے جائے اور جو ہے وہ ان کی ویب سائٹ میں ڈالے کہ آگے آپ بتائیے کہ اس کا مسئلہ کیا ہے. کیونکہ وہ صراط نجات میں کتنی ساری ایسے کتنے سوال ایسے ہیں کہ جس میں جو ہے وہ پوچھنے والے حدیثوں کو بیان کرتے ہیں کہ آگا ذرا یہ حدیث صحیح ہے کہ نہیں, یا جناب عائشہ کے سلسلے میں حدیثیں صحیح ہے کہ نہیں, کہ جو ہے رسول اللہ کے سلسلے میں جو حدیثیں صحیح, اور پھر آگا جواب دیتے کہ ہمارے نزدیک ہمارے اتحاد کے حساب سے یہ صحیح نہیں ہے, یہ صحیح ہے, یہ تمام. تو ہمارے پاس ایکسس ہے. پرانے زمانے جیسا نہیں کہ ہمیں جو ہے وہ نجف میں جانا ہی پڑے گا جو ہے وہاں ان کا جواب دینے کے لیے. تھوڑی دیر صحیح, لیکن گھر میں بیٹھے بیٹھے وی کین گیٹ دی آنسر فرام دی آفس.
بہت جزاک اللہ, بہت بہت شکریہ. ایک دوسرا سوال اس سے ریلیٹڈ ہے اگر آپ کے پاس ٹائم ہو.
جی فرمائیں.
وہ یہ کہ یہ جو حدیثیں اس طرح کی واٹس ایپ پہ آتی ہیں, کیا فارورڈ کرنا دوسروں کو اس کی کہاں تک اجازت ہے؟ کیونکہ خاص طور سے ہماری یوتھ ایون ایڈلٹس کو لگتا ہے کہ بڑی اچھی حدیث ہے, بڑے فائدہ مند ہے, دوسروں کو بھی اطلاع ہونی چاہیے. تو ہماری شرعی ذمہ داری کیا ہے کہ بغیر ویریفائی کیے اگر کوئی حدیث بہت اچھی لگ رہی ہے, فائدے کی لگ رہی ہے, کیا دوسروں کو فارورڈ کر دیں؟
اب دیکھیے اس میں جو ہے نا ڈاکٹر صاحب, حدیث اور جو روایت آتی ہے نا, تو حوزے میں جو ہے ان کو ان کی طرف برخورد کے جو ہے وہ 2 طریقے ہیں. And those are based on the type of hadith that the marja is working on. So ایک کیٹیگری آف دی حدیث جو ہوتی ہے وہ فقہی حدیث ہوتی ہے, یعنی حلال اور حرام اور مکروہ اور مباح کے اندر. یہ حدیث جو ہے بہت سینسٹیو ہوتی ہے کیونکہ خدا کا حکم ہے.
بالکل
خدا اگر کوئی چیز کو حرام قرار دیا, ہم اور آپ مکروہ قرار نہیں دے سکتے, کیونکہ خود خدا قرآن میں جو ہے وہ رسول خدا کی نسبت فرماتا ہوا نظر آتا ہے کہ اگر میرا حبیب جو ہے دنیا میں کائنات میں سب سے پیاری شخصیت جو ہے, اگر یہ بھی میری نسبت کوئی غلط بات کر دے تو میں جو گلا لگا کر دوں گا, میں لو تقول علینا بعض الاقاویل لاخذنا منه بالیمین ثم قطعنا منه الوتین, یہ رگ گردن جو ہم کاٹ دوں. رسول بھی اگر جو ہمارے نسبت کوئی غلط اس انتساب دے. سو فقہ جب ہوتا ہے نا تو بہت شدید ہوتا ہے, اور یہ تمام صحت اور سقم اور ضعیف حدیث یہ اکثر جو ہے یہ مراجع یہ حلال یہ توضیح المسائل اور فقہی رولنگز کے حساب سے اور فقہی حدیث پر جو ہے وہ امپلیمنٹ کرتے ہیں. یہ ایک گروپ ہوگا جس میں جو مراجع شدید اس میں جو ہے وہ ذرا بھی کمپرومائز نہیں کرتے. ایک دوسری کیٹیگری آف حدیث ہے جس میں جو ہے مراجع پہلے کیٹیگری جیسی اسٹرکٹنس جو ہے وہ خرچ نہیں کرتے, جو ہے وہ کمپرومائز کرتے, تھوڑا لینینسی برتتے. اس کو کہتے عدل تسامح سنن, یعنی وہ دلیل جو تسامح ہلکے سے کمپرومائز کرتے. اب یہ حدیث کون سی ہیں؟ یہ وہ حدیثیں ہیں کہ جو فقہ کی نہیں ہے لیکن ثواب اور عقاب کی حدیث ہے. آپ نے یہ عمل کر لیا تو آپ کو یہ ثواب ملے گا, آپ نے یہ عمل کر دیا تو یہ ثواب ملے گا. اب ایسی جو حدیثیں ہوتی ہیں نا اس میں جو ہے یہ مراجع مجتہدین جو ہے اس میں زیادہ جو ہے وہ ٹائم صرف نہیں کرتے. کہتے ہیں کہ ہمارے پاس ایک حدیث ہے اور روایت بھی ہے کہ اگر آپ کے پاس کوئی حدیث آئی اور آپ نے اس حدیث کو صحیح سمجھ لیا, یعنی اعمال کے ساتھ, آپ نے مثلا 2 رکعت نماز پڑھ دیجئے فلاں, آپ نے یہ تسبیح نکال دیجئے فلاں, اگر آپ کے پاس کوئی حدیث اعمال کے ثواب کے عنوان سے کوئی حدیث اور عمل آئے اور آپ نے اس پر ایمان کر کے اس پر عمل کیا, and even though it is not correct, Allah will give you the rewards.
سبحان اللہ.
تو ایسی حدیث جو ہے نا وہ مجتہدین زیادہ اس پہ نہیں کرتے, مگر ان کا جو فوکس ہوتا ہے وہ حلال اور حرام پہ, کیونکہ وہ خدا کا. تو اگر جو آپ کے پاس کوئی ایسی حدیث آئی ہے کہ جو حلال اور حرام سے مطابق ہے, وہ 5 جو ہے احکام ہے, those things then stay away.
بے شک بے شک.
But if it is not, then you can follow. But also have to be very careful at one thing, especially when you're fasting. Fasting in the month of Ramadan, agar hadith ai in which it is mentioned, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has narrated,
take this.
اور وہ اگر جو آپ کو پتا نہیں کہ وہ غلط ہے یا صحیح ہے اور روزے کی حالت میں آپ نے اس کو فارورڈ کر دیا,
جی جی
that hadith جو ہے was not sahih, was not narrated by the sixth Imam. This will fall under that rule of the invalidation of fast, where آپ جو ہے خدا یا اہل بیت پر کوئی جھوٹ باندھتے
کام جی 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 بالکل
and
بہت خوب.
forwarding.
جی
If
ہاں
this was stated by Imam Sadiq, you've not stated it.
بالکل
The fact forwarded means you are accomplice in forwarding a hadith that was not stated by the sixth Imam. In the state of fast, if you ascribe a falsehood to Allah or the Masumeen, your fast is invalidated. یہی مسئلہ لوگ سمجھتے نہیں سوشل میڈیا کا.
بالکل
ماہ رمضان ہے جو ہے وہ مثلاً بیسٹ نائٹس آف دا نائٹس آف دا ورلڈ, ہر مومنٹ جو ہے ہر لمحہ دنیا کے دوسرے تمام لمحوں سے ہے, تو ہم جو ہے وہ زیادہ ثواب حاصل کرنے کی کوشش کریں, اسپیشلی شب قدر میں. تو یا ہم سے جو ہے وہ حدیثوں کا جو ہے وہ فارورڈ ہوتا رہتا ہے, بھائی شب قدر ہے, خیر من الف شہر ہے, لیکن پتہ نہیں ہے ان کو
بالکل
کتنا ہو سکتا ہے. دن کے وقت اگر جو بھیجا گیا تو خود ان کا روزہ جو ہے وہ ایک کوشچن مارک میں آ جائے.
بالکل بالکل آپ صحیح فرمائیں. بہت بہت شکریہ مولانا صاحب, جزاک اللہ. یوتھ کے لیے بہت ضروری یہ سب باتیں تھیں, ان کو معلوم ہونی چاہیے. شکریہ بہت.
Sorry, do you have time for a couple more questions or do we call it today?
اچھا ٹھیک ہے, چلیے 2 کوشچن کر لیں.
Sorry, quickly. ہاں, یہ question sister سے ہے. If any lady is Shia and she is married to Sunni brother and she is forced to pray Sunni namaz, so what should she do?
اگر اسے یہ جو ہے نا ایک پرسنل ایشو آگا صاحب, اینڈ I think if the sister can contact me directly, look, we had agreed with the management that we will be focusing on the topic of discussion and something that is generic to everybody. یہ personal question ہے. I would appreciate آپ جو ہے میرا email address آپ کے پاس ہے, ذکی بھائی کے پاس سے بھی آپ لے سکتے, and ask the lady to get in touch with me. There are کچھ چیز ایسی ہوتی ہے نا کہ یو کی ناٹ آنسر ٹل یو نو تمام جوانب جو ہے اس موضوع کے, جب تک انسان کو جو ہے وہ پتہ نہ ہو, اٹس ناٹ رائٹ ٹو کامنٹ. سو پلیز گیو مائی ای میل ٹو دا سسٹر اینڈ آئی ول آنسر ٹو ہر پرسنلی.
There's a question that I think is related to this topic, where it's from brother Qasim Moji, and I quote, Assalamu alaikum Sheikhna, are you able to recommend texts where our Aima have established how we are able to raise our children in today's day and age? Unquote.
دیکھیے ٹیکسٹ تو ہے, there is no doubt about it. My only concern is that majority of these texts are in Arabic or Persian, جو probably شاید جو ہے وہ عام عوام کے لیے پریشانی کا سبب بنے. They might not know it. If I were to suggest something very simple without going into detailed complication is کہ بہت سارے علماء کی جو ہے وہ تربیت اولاد کی مجالس ہے. میرے خیال سے آپ ہی کے یہاں مولانا صادق صاحب جو ہے, میرے خیال سے ان کی کچھ ہے, یا مجھے یاد ہے برسوں پہلے جو ہے وہ مولانا جان عشا کاظمی صاحب کی جو ہے وہ کچھ 10 مجلسیں تھیں, اور دیگر مولانا اور علماء کی جو ہے وہ تربیت اولاد کے سلسلے میں جو ہے وہ مجلسیں ہیں. I think if those are brought and listened to, they'll be very beneficial. وگرنہ تو جو ہے وہ یہ پورے ٹاپک میں جو حدیثیں ہوتی ہے that are scattered in various areas in the books of hadith, تو نہیں کہتا کہ کتابیں نہیں ہیں, عربک میں ہے, اردو میں ہے, انگلش میں ہے, سوری عربک میں ہے, پرشین میں ہے, but I am not very certain if you have something that has been translated into English. I could find out and send the link.
We've got someone who is, sorry, just come up with a question if I can ask that. He's saying last year in April 2020, I saved money for ziyarat, but because of Corona pandemic could not go. Now in April 2021, inshallah, again, I want to use that money in ziyarat. Do I have to pay khums?
اگر جو 1 سال ہو چکا ہے زیارت جو ہے وہ مستحب ہے, اگر 1 سال ہو چکا ہے تو پھر اس پر خمس جو ہے وہ he will have to pay خمس. अगर 1 साल निकल गया है तो।
सब sorry, question आ गया है chat पे यहाँ पे. If you know 100 hadith is 100% wrong, and you've read it in a WhatsApp group, is it our duty to tell in the group that it is wrong with reference?
If you know for certain, then yes, because I tend to do it. अगर किसी ने मुझे कुछ हदीस या कुछ references भेजा है, and if I find it is not right, then I do tell him, because देखिए, we can't force anybody, but at least we can highlight him. Look, what you're saying is detrimental not only to the others but even to you. क्योंकि जो है जितने लोग इस हदीस पर तुम्हारी अमल करेंगे, वो सभी का वज़्र और वबाल जो है तुम्हारे गर्दन पर आएगा. So yes, if you see something wrong, then on the basis of amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, you will have to correct it. But the condition is you need to know for certain that it is not correct.
The last question was from Zaki Bhai. So I think we are done here. I will, with your permission, I will paste your email address, or if you want to send it in this Zoom chat. ठीक है. Jazakallah Moulana Sahab.
Jazakallah Moulana Sahab. Thank you.
Awesome session. Thank you so much for your time. And
some last question I have asked you,
one.
but only I was scared about if I'm going to tell the hadith is wrong, more 50% people are going to be my enemy.
तो आप जो है वो जो देखिए, आपको भी अगर जो पता चलना है कि ये हदीस सही है कि गलत है, और आप कहते हैं कि 100% आपको पता है कि गलत है, तो obviously you would have had some reference from some scholars.
Normally I go to Moulana Sadiq Sahab always here to find you out.
आप मौलाना सादिक साहब का रेफरेंस देते हुए कह दीजिए कि उनके हवाले से और उनके बिना पर जो है ये हदीस सही नहीं है, तो आप प्लीज रिफ्रेन करें. तो देन विद मौलाना सादिक साहब का नाम जब आएगा, तो फिर people will attach more this thing that yes, now it's coming from an authentic religious authority, and then you will not face a backlash.
Inshallah, Masan. Thank you, myself, for your time. Really, we appreciate. Inshallah, we're going to meet you next month, in April. Yeah, inshallah. Okay. And remember, if you can tell sister, like Moulana Sahab already gave us permission, if you can send sisters separately, Moulana Sahab email address.
Can you please send it to me? I don't have his email address.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Moulana Sahab, with your permission. Thank you,
Moulana Sahab. Inshallah, looking forward to your next session in the month of April. Thank you.
Mazum, thank you, and thanks for time. Imran bhai, can you send sisters separately? I'll give it to you email address after. Yeah. Do you want now?